Well, Jonathan, it's great to be with you. This is Curtis Martin from Focus, and we are with Jonathan Roumie from The Chosen, and excited to spend just a little time both talking about Christmas with The Chosen. My wife, Mike Land, and I had a chance to watch it move to tears multiple times. So beautiful. And we'll talk about that, and also about Seek and what's going on with Focus and gathering tens of thousands of young people from all around the world. And so a delight to be with you, Jonathan.
Same here, Curtis. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so I'd just love to let everybody get to know you just a little bit. I have the opportunity within Focus to get up on a stage or behind a podium and talk to people about Jesus, and then I get off the stage and I go back and I'm an ordinary person. I doubt you have that opportunity. People kind of recognize you these days.
It's happening more and more frequently. So I'm trying to preserve and appreciate what's left of my anonymity as long as I can. There's a lot left. I should be clear. But I'm going to, I think, just relish as much of that privacy as I can. For as long as
it is a gift that people don't understand. It can be a burden, and at the same time, Jonathan, I think we met earlier this summer and had a chance to chat, and I think both of us felt you were ordinary guys trying to follow Jesus, and He gives us opportunities. And I'm thrilled to be talking about Christmas with The Chosen and also about Seek. We've got tens of thousands of students and staff and benefactors, and we're inviting them all. And I just want to make an urgent and compelling appeal. I promise you, I will have my family sitting down and watching this. We watched it today, my wife and I, and we will gather everybody. And I invite each and every one of you to watch this. Jonathan, in our day and age, Focus exists to evangelize essentially college students, but also parishioners, anybody. And a lot of folks are hesitant about the church or institutions, but they're still fascinated by the person of Jesus. And I just want to get people engaged in the person of Jesus. We'll talk about the church in a little bit. Let's talk about Jesus. Sure. And God has given you the opportunity to do that in an artistic way. It's absolutely so beautiful. I was joking with Shannon last night, who's helping us, and said, this is one of Jonathan's most amazing acting experiences because you were so young. I'm kidding. The baby's a different person. But but to be able to represent a
lot of de-aging going on in that process.
Exactly. You've aged quite a bit since this morning when I watched. But to get people to engage, I just believe, and I know you do too, that Jesus Christ is the most compelling figure in all of history. And we don't think enough about him. We're distracted by 1,000 different things. What is it like to be invited, to invite both on the screen and off the screen, to invite people to think about Jesus?
I mean, it's the most humbling honor of my life. The fact that I get to portray Jesus in what could arguably become the most well-known depiction of his life, possibly of all time, by sheer fact of the matter that we're taking 7 seasons of a TV series to show his 3 years of his ministry. And that's never been done before. We're talking something close to 50 to 60 hours of screen time for Jesus's 3 years of his life. So I don't know that I can even understand the full impact of what that's going to mean, what it's going to look like, how deeply it's going to affect an untold number of people. Just the few interactions that I've had with fans and things like that. Many, but the few comparative to what 7 seasons is going to bring. It's been profound for so many people for so many different reasons. And I think just to get to be a part of that is something I may not really truly understand fully until sometime distant in the future.
So we are, people will be watching this afterwards. We're in Advent, we're getting ready for Christmas, and we're highlighting Christmas with The Chosen, which I was very moved. I mean, you've got artists, musicians who are testifying with their lives and their music to the beauty of Christ's life, and then a beautifully told story of the birth of Christ. I thought the depiction of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and both at the birth, but also at later in life, and the Magnificat, and I won't get into the details. I'm not going to be a spoiler, but my wife and I were both crying as we thought about the writing of the sacred scriptures. And I love what you guys have done to bring the humanity of Christ and the early disciples to play, and to really get us to wrestle with. If we think about it through the centuries, we sometimes put them on a pedestal and realize they actually lived their lives as humans, and all kinds of stuff had to be worked through. You guys do that. Yeah. I mean, there's no depiction that I've ever seen anything close to this. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really takes its time in being able to show just how flawed and broken vessels that Jesus, that God used to help tell the ministry of to tell the story of salvation through his ministry, by choosing, and still does, and choosing the folks that he chose for his disciples.
Well, we are the other part we want to highlight to our friends is Seek, the annual conference of focus. We'll have, we don't know, but it's going to be tens of thousands of young people. It'll be the largest Seek we've ever had, February 4th through 6th. Jonathan, I don't know what you're doing. I'd like to extend an invitation to maybe have you join us in some way. You've become such a cultural mover and really embody literally what we're trying to do. I like to share in John's first chapter, Philip meets Nathanael and says, "We found the Messiah." And Nathanael says, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" And Jesus talks to him for 2 verses. And Nathanael says, "You're the Son of God, the Holy One of Israel." And that's evangelization. We don't have to do much work. We do have to get them to come meet Jesus, come and see. And you literally are doing that on the television screens and really redeeming and captivating an entire media that is so powerful. And we know from past, the greatest story ever told decades ago, the Passion of the Christ years ago, and now the chosen to be able to see when Jesus is presented to people, the same is true for them as true for Nathanael. They go from hesitancy or even reluctancy or even rejection to, "You're the Holy One of God, the King of Israel." And that's the hope. And when I listen to the musicians talk about their personal testimonies of watching you in The Chosen, and then singing beautifully, and then watching this beautiful Christmas episode and reminding us of just the reality of the birth of Jesus, that God became flesh for us. Yeah. And so what are you doing for Advent and Christmas to prepare personally?
There's the daily scriptures that we're meditating on, and right now I'm in another city shooting a documentary that's going to be out at some point next year. I can't say too much more about it. So I'm traveling right now, and so the main thing for me is to get my prayer time in, and when I'm abroad. It's all about finding the local churches, trying to find a sense of rhythm and consistency with prayer life, and do all the things that I would do if I were home. But for Advent, it's really meditating on the gift of the Savior that is to be in just a few weeks' time. So that's been what I've been doing.
And I see that in your life. I've heard you say it from the podium, but I know when we met, we had met at Napa, and your busy schedule, they were actually able to have a special mass for you because it was important to you in the midst of your travels. And my wife and I were invited to join you just with a handful of people in a cave at the hotel. And just a beautiful thing. And I want to praise you for that. We're trying to get everybody we can, but tens of thousands of young people to realize making Jesus Christ a central part of your daily life. Can you get to Mass? Can you spend time with the scriptures? I love that you mentioned reading the scriptures. You can do that anywhere, and to be able to recognize that. And it's so important because it's transformative for all of us. And that's the whole work, I think, of The Chosen, and also Focus, to try to get people to focus in on the person of Jesus, the people he impacted. I was very moved by watching the Christmas episode and just seeing both Mary at the time of the birth, but you also render her later in life, and to see the impact that Jesus has had on the disciples. And I always like to say, we don't think of Jesus the way we do of George Washington, who did stuff for us in the past. That's also true, and he did more than anybody, but he's alive today. And you are rendering that beautifully and artistically present to so many people to recognize. And you see the disciples wrestling with Jesus in most of the chosen episodes, but in this episode, both at his birth and after his resurrection, the disciples continuing to wrestle with the living person of Jesus Christ. And that's really kind of Christianity, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the story of the church. Bishop Robert Barron, when he's one of our biblical consultants for season 2. And when he watched episode 3, which for 27 minutes of the episode, however long it is, if it's 28 minutes, 27 minutes are spent of the disciples arguing with each other. And then at the end, kind of, Jesus makes an appearance. And I remember I was watching with him, and he looks over, he's like, that's kind of like the church right now. So like all the disciples arguing, there's Jesus like, don't mind me, I'm just healing a bunch of people. And so, and then they're just kind of left going like, what are we doing? And I think it's brought to light things that are just very relevant and reminds us that we have to keep the focus on Christ, and that's how we can work past all the walls that tend to come up, even within our own denomination, even within Catholicism. It's like if we lose sight of Christ, we lose sight of what's binding us together, what's the most important thing, what's unifying us. So I think it behooves us to sort of, take a note in that way and just say, let's try to focus on Christ.
I remember years ago, I know you're friends
Christ.
with Scott Hahn. You were at his gala not too long ago. And but Scott said years ago, JP2 was the Pope, and he goes, very provocative, says, I don't trust the Pope. And there's this silence. You're like, oh my goodness, what's he saying? He goes, I trust Jesus Christ, who empowers the Pope. And because of Jesus, I trust. And he really has to be the center of everything. Otherwise, the controversies, the chaos in our world. And I think what a gift in the midst of COVID and all the stuff that's going on, that you would have been invited, and that everybody involved in Chosen would be invited to draw people to focus on Jesus, on the impact he's having in other people's lives, and then ours. We've got a wonderful audience, and I want you to be able to invite them to join you. Many of them are actively involved in Chosen. We've got board members who are part of your core. They went down and watched you preach the Sermon on the Mount, and they got T-shirts called "The Chosen Frozen" because it was pretty cold.
From the Chosen. That's right. I survived the Sermon on the Mount. Yeah,
exactly. And so lots of people really, really involved. But there are other people who are going to be watching who haven't there. I'd love for you to be able to make an invitation to have those who are watching us join you in the Chosen. What would you say to them?
I would say that I would love to invite people into a deeper relationship with Christ, with the humanity of Christ that you may have not, more than likely will not have ever seen, ever depicted on screen before. And through the depiction and through the accessibility of Christ's humanity, and being reminded what that could have possibly looked like, it then creates a completely refreshed view as to what his impact would have been from person to person. And that's what the show has been doing for people. That's I think what we can attribute its rising success to, is the fact that people have watched the show and they watch the show and they feel that they can now access Jesus in a way that is not this austere, dominant authority that is judging them for every mistake they've ever made. And we're just trying to show them that, like, no, Jesus loves us despite every mistake we've ever made, regardless. I mean, he is infinite mercy, infinite love, infinite compassion. And you really begin to get a sense of what that could have looked like on the day-to-day level through this series.
So you've been working obviously with cast, people that are portraying the disciples, the Mary, in this video, Joseph. Tell me a little bit about the impact, because you guys are spending a lot of time together thinking about Jesus And obviously you're actors and you're playing roles, but it's hard not to have that bleed into your heart. What's that like for you and for the rest of the cast members?
Well, I can't really speak on behalf of any of the other cast members. I can just say that for myself, it's been extremely personal, and the more time that I've spent, playing the role and researching the role and reading about Jesus and listening to people talk about Jesus and the theology and the opinions and learning about the history of the Jewish tradition and the Jewish faith and how it complements how the Old Testament is, the foundation of the New Testament. You can't help but be affected by it. And for me, playing Christ has hopefully made me a better version of myself. But more importantly, it makes me want to be a better version of myself. I'm absolutely 1,000% still human, and I still screw up, and I'm extremely flawed. And I just ask for God's grace and humility every step of the way.
Yeah, sure.
to continue to do this and help tell the story of the greatest person, the greatest being that ever walked the earth.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're all going to confession regularly. We're sinners given a great opportunity. And I think, as I look at the Focus family that we're speaking to and just encouraging them, please check out this Christmas special. It's spectacular. It's so worth it. And if you haven't been watching The Chosen, let this be the introduction to go back to the beginning and start from season 1, episode 1. We are really, really eager to get you involved. Also with Seek and February 4 through 6, we'll be gathering a few hundred, several hundred people in Denver, but thousands, tens of thousands of people all over the world, Europe. And Jonathan, I re-extend the invitation. If we're able to engage you in any way, we'd love to do that. You're a tremendous inspiration to people.
Thank you.
We're kind of asking the question, and I know we're kind of running out of time, and you're traveling and at a great distance. Really appreciate your time. We were hoping that our good friend Matt Maher, who was part of the Christmas special, would join us. He was landing in an airport and trying to find a way to take his mask off and appear. It doesn't look like he's going to make it, but he wanted us to send. I spent a fair amount of time chatting with Matt yesterday. He's been so moved by what you're doing, and he's been a great part of Focus. I like to say that I like to joke with Matt that all of his Grammy nominations came after he started speaking or performing for Seek and for Focus. So he got the Focus bump. We're hoping that's also the true for you, not that you need it. But you present the person of Christ. I'm going to ask you in character, if you would. Well, the question we've been asking people is, who do you say that I am? And we're just during this Advent season encouraging people, and really at all times, to in their heart of hearts, in their imagination, but not imagination in the sense of fake, but in the sense of where you go in prayer, to allow Jesus to ask you that same question. Who do you say that I am? Which I think leads people to the fundamental decision of how they're going to live.
So you're asking me to answer that question?
Well, I'm asking you to ask that question first in character, and then I'd love for you to answer it out of character, in person.
Who do you say that I am? Who do I say? Who does Jesus say? Who do I say that Jesus is? I'd say that Jesus, well, he's my best friend. He's my constant companion. He's the guy that checks me when I mess up and says, is that really the right move right now? And convicts me in my own thoughts, but loves me unconditionally. And for that, I can never repay him. But that's what I say he is, I guess.
It would be my prayer, Jonathan, that everybody who's watching and will watch would be able to come to a very similar answer, as beautifully stated. So grateful for your time. I know you're crazy busy. We're praying for the success of The Chosen. Want everybody to watch the Christmas special. Really a spectacular encouragement if you're already deeply engaged in The Chosen, but also a wonderful introduction if you haven't been. Want you to join us for Seek, February 4th through 6th. We'll have all the information digitally. Jonathan Roumie, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Curtis. God bless you.
God bless.
You love, as you watch this, every single one of you, you love in a way that nobody else loves. That you love God in a way that's just particular to you. That you love other people in a way that's just particular to you. It's a glorious masterpiece of creation that is you. And the Lord sees you. And he calls you. And he loves you.
God doesn't need us, and yet he desires us, and he uses us. We give him glory.
How can one love this much?
Apparently, the Father says, you're worth rejoicing, and apparently, the Father says, you are worth loving.
This question that Christ asks us, who do you say that I am? And that we will inversely ask him, Jesus, who do you say that I am? Is the foundation